Do you ever watch those singing competition shows, American Idol, The Voice, other shows of that ilk? There are always moments in those auditions, those moments that we're actually really watching for, if we're honest, where someone comes on with absolute confidence. They're smiling, they're chatting up the judges, there's not a trace of nervousness in them. And the scene will maybe cut away, the camera's cut away to this interview with this person, before they come up on stage, where they say, I've been singing since I was 3 years old, and music is my life, and everybody tells me that I should be famous, and this is my chance. This is my chance if I win this competition. And so they get up and they chat with the judges for a moment, they ask them a couple questions, and they give them the nod, go ahead and start. And so the music starts playing, and they open their mouth, and it's bad. Like, it is really, really bad. There's no rhythm. They're off key. The judges, they kind of look at each other. You know this look. They look at each other. The audience, they're trying not to laugh, right? And this person, they're just going at it. They're still singing. They're confident. They're convinced that they're nailing it. And when they finish, if they're actually given a chance to finish, well, there's this awkward moment. And then one of the judges will say something to the effect of, that's not quite what we were looking for. And if it's Simon just tells them, you're terrible and you should never sing again. That person typically gets angry, right? They're at least frustrated, upset, but often they get angry. And you might hear them make some kind of a comment like this: you wouldn't even know real talent if you saw it. And then they storm off stage, still fully convinced that they've got what it takes and that everyone else is wrong. That's the power of self-deception. They have no idea that they're completely blind to the reality that everyone else can see. And we watch that and we think, how could they possibly not hear how bad that really was? But we all know people like this. The social media, the social justice warrior who's posting on Facebook and Instagram all the time. They're talking about justice, they're talking about poverty and immigration and whatever the issue is, but they never do anything about it. They never serve, they never donate, they just post. Or how about that person at work? That person at work that talks about having a great work ethic and being a hard worker. But you see them, they know what to say that sounds right. They know what to say to the boss and how to act when the boss is around. But when there's work to be done, when there's a project to be completed, they're nowhere to be found. What about that person who's constantly telling you how busy they are, how overwhelmed they are in their life? But you watch them and they spend hours scrolling social media, watching cat videos on YouTube. Maybe it's that person who claims to be an amazing cook, but they put pineapple on everything, including pizza. And for the life of them, they can't understand why people don't appreciate their cooking. See, we can all see the gaps. We can see the disconnection between what people say and what they actually do. And it drives us crazy, doesn't it? But here's the question that we sometimes are maybe reluctant to ask. What if we all do this? What if the gap that we see so clearly in other people exists in us too? Maybe we're just too blind to see it. See, that self-deception is a powerful thing. We can convince ourselves of almost anything if we're not willing to have an honest look at ourselves. Maybe that brings us to the most important question of all. What if you've been saying that you're a Christian, but your life doesn't back it up? What if you're convinced that you know God, but the evidence actually suggests otherwise? Talk's cheap. Well, John's about to show us why. So over the past 2 weeks, we've been working our way through 1 John. We started by hearing John's pastoral heart, his desire for us to have fellowship with God through Jesus Christ. And then we faced the first test. Are we honest about our sin? We learn that walking in the light doesn't mean perfection, it means confession. So today, John is going to give us actually two more tests, and these tests are going to cut right to the heart of the question, do you really know God? Not, can you say the right words? Not, do you come to church regularly? But do you actually, really know him? Well, John's going to start with a simple statement. In verse 3, he writes this, we know that we have come to know him if we keep his commands. We know we've come to know him if. John's going to give us another test. This is the second of the three tests, a way to know if we truly know God. Notice that he doesn't say that obedience is how you earn a relationship with God. He's not saying obedience saves you. He's saying obedience proves that you're already saved. Let me say that again because it's critical. Obedience does not earn God's love. Obedience demonstrates that you've already received God's love. This is not about performance, it's about proof. If you know God, if you really know him, then your life will show it. And the proof is in your obedience to his commands. Well, John continues. He's about to get confrontational. He says this, whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person. This is the second time in this brief passage, we covered this last week and then this week again, where John has called these false teachers liars. Not mistaken, but liars. And that may seem harsh, but we need to remember that John's dealing with people who have claimed to have fellowship with God while they continue to walk in darkness. Last week we saw that first test. Are we honest about our sin? These false teachers are saying, we don't have any sin. Their lives don't match their words, and so John says, you're a liar. See, talk is cheap. You can't claim to know God while you're living in willful, habitual disobedience. You can't say, Jesus is my Lord, while you're doing whatever you want. See, that word Lord, it means something. The word Lord means that he's king, that he's the ruler. It means he's the boss. And so you can't have it both ways. You can't say that Jesus is Lord and not do what he says. James writes it this way in his letter. He writes in chapter 2, verse 19, he says, you believe that God is one? You do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. It's not just intellectual knowledge. It's not just the words that you say. We need to pause here and clarify what John means when he says, know God. If you claim to know God. See, these false teachers in John's church, they're claiming to know God. They claim to have actually a special spiritual knowledge, a deeper mystical understanding that went beyond what the apostles taught. They thought they had some insider access to God. But John's saying that their claim to know God is a lie because it doesn't produce a changed life. It didn't result in obedience. See, these teachers claimed to know God. They were called Gnostics, which means knowledge. They claim to know God, but John says the person who claims to know God but doesn't obey him is a liar. So what does it actually mean to know God? See, knowing God is so much more than knowing about God. The Greek word that John uses here for know, it's the same word that the Greek translation of the Old Testament uses to refer to Adam knowing his wife, and she conceived. That isn't just intellectual knowledge. There's something intimate and experiential and relational in knowledge. You can know a lot about someone without actually knowing them. So I could tell you all kinds of facts about some famous athlete. I could tell you where he grew up, where he went to college and to school. I could recite all of his stats as a rookie and beyond. But the fact is that I've never met that person. I don't know him. Never had a conversation with him. I certainly don't have a relationship with him. But some of us, I think, have that kind of relationship with God. We know facts. We know theology, and honestly, I can fall into this. My training pulls me towards books and commentaries and systematic theology, and I can spend hours studying about God and forget to actually spend time with God. I can spend hours reading books about spending time with God without spending time with God. Do we know him? Is there intimacy? Is there fellowship? Is there love? Because talk is cheap. Saying you know God isn't actually the same thing as knowing him. And so John continues. If anyone obeys his word, love for God is truly made complete in them. That phrase, love for God is truly made complete, has been debated by scholars for a long time. What does it mean? What does it mean that love for God is made complete? I think it's most likely that John's saying that God's love reaches its goal when it produces obedience in us. God's love reaches its goal when it produces obedience. See, God loves you, that's a fact. His love isn't dependent on our obedience. He loved you while you were still a sinner. Romans 5:8 tells us that, but when God's love takes root in your heart, it changes you. And the one way that it changes you is that you start to obey him, not out of fear, but out of love. It's because you're loved. Let me illustrate it this way. Imagine a woman who's married to a harsh and controlling husband. He's abusive, he demeans her. Every day he leaves, and he leaves with her a list of things, chores that she needs to do. She needs to clean the house, she needs to vacuum, she needs to dust, she needs to scrub the toilets, she needs to mop the floors. And if anything's not done to his satisfaction, well, he explodes. See, she obeys him out of fear. And then one day he dies. And years later, she marries another man, a man who is kind and gentle and loving. He shows her every day that he loves her. And one day, buried in the back of a junk drawer in the kitchen, she finds one of those old lists. Those old lists from her first husband that detailed out all those chores that she was supposed to do. And she kind of smiles wistfully, and maybe a tear comes to her eyes. She realizes something. See, she's still doing all the same things. She's still mopping, scrubbing, vacuuming, cooking. She's doing all of the same things, but something has changed. The tasks didn't change, but the motivation did. See, with her first husband, obedience was a burden. But with her second husband, service is a joy. It's what makes Christianity different from every other religion. Every other religion says, obey so that God will love you. But Christianity, the gospel says, God already loves you. Obey because you love him back. See, talk is cheap, but love is costly, and love acts. John wraps up this second test by saying this. This is how we know that we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must live as Jesus did. See, if you claim to follow Jesus, your life should look like Jesus. It's not perfection. You're not Jesus, but your life should be moving in that direction. Are you obeying what he commanded? Are you doing what he said to do? Do you care about the things that Jesus cared about? Do you love the people that Jesus loved? Does your heart break for the things that break Jesus' heart? Or do you just talk about Jesus? Because talk is cheap. John's going to shift gears. He moves on from this test of obedience to a test of love, and specifically love for other believers. He writes this, "Dear friends, I'm not writing to you a new command, but an old one, which you've had since the beginning. This old command is the message you have heard. Yet I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him and in you because the darkness is passing and the true light is already shining." Oh, wait, what? Is it old or is it new? Make up your mind, John. This isn't about confusion. This is actually intentional. This command to love is both old and new. It's old because God has always commanded love. Way back in Leviticus, God told his people, love your neighbor as yourself. This isn't a new idea at all. It goes all the way back to the beginning. When John says to his readers, you've had this command from the beginning, he's talking about from the beginning of their Christian life. From day one, they've heard it. Love one another. So yeah, it's old. It's familiar. If any of these believers are Jewish, they would have had this from childbirth. Love your neighbor. It's the message they heard since they first believed. But it is also new. And here's why. This commandment is old because God has always commanded love, but it's new because because until Jesus, we never really knew what that love was supposed to look like. Let me show you the key distinction. The Old Testament standard is this: love your neighbor as yourself. The New Testament standard: love one another as I have loved you. Do you see the difference? The standard has changed. In the Old Testament, the measuring stick was yourself. Love others the way you love yourself. That's pretty challenging in its own, right? But Jesus raises the bar even farther. He said, love one another as I have loved you. How did Jesus love us? He left heaven. He became human. He lived a perfect life. He was beaten, betrayed, mocked, crucified. And he did it all for people who hated him. That's the new standard. Biblical scholar John Stott puts it this way: the command to love became new in its quality, in that his own self-sacrifice on the cross became the standard. See, that cross changes everything. Now when we talk about love, we're not just talking about warm feelings or kind words. We're talking about self-sacrifice. We're talking about laying down your life for someone else. That's what makes it new. Jesus didn't just tell us to love. He showed us what love looks like. And now that's our standard. So when John says this command is true in him and in you, he's saying that this kind of love was perfectly demonstrated in Jesus, and now, because of the Holy Spirit, it's becoming true in us as well. We're learning to love the way Jesus loved. Can we be honest? That's a lifelong process. Well, John's going to get specific. Anyone who claims to be in the light but hates a brother or sister is still in the darkness. Now, notice the pattern. John keeps saying, whoever says, I know him but doesn't obey. Anyone who claims to be in the light and hates a brother or sister. This talk is cheap. You can say that you're in the light. You can say that you're a Christian. But if you hate other believers, you're lying. You're still in the darkness. Now, I do think we need to be careful here. John's not saying that you have to like every Christian you meet. He's not saying you'll never have conflict with another believer. He's not saying every Christian is always going to get along with each other. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've met plenty of Christians that I don't particularly enjoy spending time with. Maybe you have too. Some Christians are just difficult. They're awkward. They're obnoxious. They're overly opinionated. They have personalities that clash with yours. But here's the thing. Even when someone annoys you, you're still called to love them. Not just avoid hating them, not just tolerate them, but actively love them. You might not choose to hang out with them on a Friday night. That's okay. But when you see them in church, do you greet them warmly? When they have a need, do you show up? When they're hurting, do you care? That's what John's talking about. So what's hatred? How's that different? Hatred is something entirely different from just not clicking with someone. Hatred is when you wish harm to someone. Hate is when you rejoice in their suffering, when you refuse to forgive, you refuse to reconcile, refuse to love. And John says if that's you, you don't know God. You're walking in darkness. See, God forgave much in you while you were still enemies. We're called to the same kind of love. John continues, anyone who loves their brother and sister lives in the light, and there is nothing in them to make them stumble. So on the flip side, if you love other believers, it's evidence that you are in the light. Your love is proof of your salvation. And notice what John says, there is nothing in them to make them stumble. When you love others, you're not a stumbling block. You're not causing division. You're not tearing the church apart. You're building it up. John continues, if anyone hates a brother or sister, anyone who hates a brother or sister is in the darkness and walks around in the darkness. They do not know where they're going because the darkness has blinded them. This is a tragic picture. Someone who hates is someone who is blind. They're stumbling around in the dark, convinced that they're fine, but they have no idea where they're going. See, that hate blinds you. It distorts your perspective, and it keeps you from seeing the truth. Talk is cheap, but love opens your eyes. So here's the question for all of us. Do you really know God? Not do you know about God? Not did you pray a prayer once? Not even do you go to church? But do you know him? Do you have a relationship with him? John's given us these two additional tests to help us to answer that question. Last week we saw the first of these three tests, that honesty about sin. Today we've seen two more. Do you obey and do you love fellow believers? And I want you to actually use these tests, not just nod along, not just make a mental note that that's what John is talking about. Don't be self-deceived. Don't miss in yourself what others may be able to see. I want you to actually stop and examine yourself. So here's what I want you to do this week. There are two things. First, identify one area in your life where you need to grow in obedience to God. One area in your life that you need to grow in obedience. Maybe that's in your finances. Are you generous? Are you tithing? Or are you holding on to your money with a clenched fist? Maybe it's your thought life. What are you feeding your mind? What are you watching on Netflix and Amazon and Hulu? Are you binge watching shows that are filled with violence and sexual content? Or values that completely contradict what you say you believe? What are you looking at online when no one else is around? What are you scrolling through on social media? So your mind is a garden. Whatever you plant is what's going to grow. Maybe it's in your words. Do you gossip? Do you tear people down? Do you complain? Or maybe it's your marriage. Are you loving your spouse sacrificially? Or are you selfish and demanding? Maybe it's in your integrity at work. Are you honest? Do you cut corners, fudge the numbers, stretch the truth? Do you waste time rather than working diligently? There's more. I could go on, but you get the point. I want you to identify one area and be brutally honest with yourself. And don't pick something that's easy. Don't pick an area where you're already doing pretty well, right? That's our tendency. It's like, I don't really struggle with this thing, so I'm going to pick that area. And I'm going to reflect on that. And yeah, I think I've got it all pretty well nailed down. Pick that one that makes you uncomfortable, the one you've been avoiding, the one maybe you know about. It's been bugging you. It's been nagging at you. The Holy Spirit's been convicting you about this thing for a while, and you just haven't taken the step. You haven't stepped towards obedience. Is this an area where you've stumbled occasionally, or is it characterized by consistent and ongoing willful disobedience? And hear me again, I'm not saying that you need to be perfect. You're not, none of us are. But if the pattern of your life is the pattern of your life, obedience or disobedience, because talk is cheap. You can say you know God all day long, but if your life doesn't show it, John says that you're lying. You're lying to yourself, you're lying to others. And that second test, we talked about it already, but here's that second test. This is the one that might sting even more. Think about the Christians in your life. The people in this church, in your small group, your Christian friends. Is there someone that you've been avoiding? Is there someone that you resent? Is there someone that you gossip about? Is there someone you refuse to forgive? Is there someone who, if you're honest, you just don't like? Listen carefully, because this is important. You don't have to like every Christian that you meet. And I need you to hear me say that. But there's a difference between I don't particularly enjoy their company and I harbor bitterness towards them. There's a difference between our personalities clash and I refuse to reconcile with them. There's a difference between they're awkward and I actively avoid them. If you're honest, I think you know the difference. And so here's what I want you to do. Think of one specific person. One Christian in your life who's difficult. One person you've been avoiding or resenting or refusing to forgive. Do you have somebody in mind? Most of you can think of someone. Now here's your assignment this week. Love them. Not in some vague, abstract way, but concretely, specifically. I'll give you a couple of examples of what it could look like. Maybe you text them this week and say, hey, I've been thinking about you. How can I pray for you? Now, if you get one of those texts this week, maybe you invite them out for coffee. Maybe you offer to help them with something practical, babysitting or yard work or moving furniture or shopping. Maybe you've had a conflict with them and you need to reach out and you need to say, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Maybe you just need to stop avoiding that person and actually have a conversation. And I know this is uncomfortable. I know it's easier to just keep your distance, but that's not how Jesus loved you. Jesus didn't wait for you to get your act together. He didn't wait for you to become lovable. You're not. Most of you. He loved you while you were still a sinner. He loved you at your worst. And now he's calling you to love other people that same way. So this week I want you to do those two things. Examine yourself and identify that one area where you need to grow in obedience to God. And then love one difficult Christian. Pick one person to do something concrete to show them this love this week. This isn't optional. This isn't if you feel like it. This is a test of whether you know God. Talk is cheap. But obedience and love, that's proof that your faith is real. So let me bring this home. We started today talking about self-deception, about people who are convinced that they're amazing singers when they can't carry a tune, about people who put pineapple on pizza and call themselves chefs. We can all see the gap in other people, that disconnect between what they say and what they actually do. Can we be honest? The hardest person to see clearly is yourself. That's what makes this passage so uncomfortable, because John's not asking us to evaluate other people's faith. He's asking us to examine our own. Do you really know God? See, it's possible to say all the right things and still not know him. It's possible to go to church, to pray before meals, to own and even read a Bible and still be walking in darkness. Talk is cheap. But a life marked by obedience and love, that's different. That's evidence. That's proof that your faith is real. So don't walk out of here today and forget about this. Don't just nod your head and say, good sermon, Pastor, and then go back to your life as usual. You need to actually do something. Examine yourself. Identify one area where you need to grow in obedience to God, and then love that difficult Christian. Because here's the thing. This is how people will know you're a follower of Jesus. They will know you by your love. It's not by what you say, not by the bumper sticker on your car or the Bible app on your phone. It's by how you live, by whether you obey, and by whether you love. Talk is cheap. Jesus is real, and if you know him, if you really know him, your life will prove it.